Hello folks, hope you're doing well. My name is Marc Gallagher. I am a professional full-time musician disciplined on various instruments, and I've done a couple of videos recently about bass. I play bass, I have played bass for maybe half of my life. I think I've played it since like 2011, so damn, yeah, I've been playing it for maybe 13 years, and I wanted to kind of do a little video on gear and on my current rig that I have for playing bass. So let's firstly take a look at just the controls. We're going to be looking and for the sake of this, we're going to be going through my Fender P-Bass. This is a Fender Mexican Standard Precision Bass, and it's lovely, and I have sold it, so I'm going to be departing with this one pretty soon and getting a USA made bass, and we will get to that in a future video when that time comes. But I love this bass, and I thought we'd just use this as like the control for going through like my pedals and my amp and going through that sort of stuff. My other basses include a Fender Jazz, which I'm also going to be upgrading to an American Jazz, and I've also got a Flight Mini JB bass as well. I'm not going to be going through all of those today. I just want to kind of look more at the amps and the pedals and how I got things sorted. But yeah, this is a little video looking at my rig. Let's firstly talk about the amp. It is a Fender Rumble 200. I played one at Dawson's in Chester, RIP to Dawson's, and I loved it. I think it's really versatile, and it's just, I love its sound, generally speaking, in terms of like the top end clarity and detail when you enable like the bright mode. In a bit to save money, I went on eBay and I found one from an American store, and I got that delivered, and then I plugged it in and immediately blew the fuse because it was 110 volts, not 230. So that's my bad. Thankfully, I got the fuse swapped over and sorted, and now everything's all hunky-dory. The Fender Rumble 200 is great. It's got a 4-band EQ. Particularly, I like the low-mid control and the presence that gives you without just being mud. I really like that control, but it's also got 3 different EQ buttons in the form of modern, vintage, and bright. They're just EQ buttons that will give some really nice tones and textures, and also you can blend those together, or you can play about with those and also the 4-band EQ knobs. It's great. Additionally, you also have gain and master volume for some nice tonal control, and there's also an overdrive channel, which is decent, even if I'm not a massive fan of overdrive for bass. The Rumble 200 has a 15-inch woofer and also a tweeter. I have the compression horn on all the time because it just is nice. And then it's also got capability for an extension cab. For the longest time, I had a PV115 extension cab, and it was great. 2 15-inch speakers. It was very big and very weighty. However, I was a sucker for the branding. Recently, I've just gotten a big kick out of logging into Fender and registering like the serial numbers of my gear on their site, and I want to kind of do the same thing for the extension cab. Also, the PV was a bit big as a box. It was taking up a bit too much space, and it's heavy, and also it was not Fender, and I wanted the cab to match the amp. In my searches, I managed to find a 4x10 cab. It was about £150, which was a steal, and just a drive to Nottingham. It's about a couple-hour drive from me. So back in January, I think, I went to get this cab. It's great. It's got wheels. It's a 4x10. So by having those 10-inch speakers, it's got a really nice little bit of clarity to it. Having that bit of mid-range poke besides just the absolute wall of massive stuff that is that 15-inch speaker. So I've got like a best of both worlds scenario. For the demonstrations today, I'm going to be miking up the 15-inch woofer with the AKG C414. I'm going through the Golden Age 1073 style preamp. Right, let's talk the board, because very recently I've joined a covers band playing bass for some rock covers, and I knew that I needed to at the very least get a tuner pedal, which I have in this little Donna here. I knew I needed to get one of those, and then it just spiraled into the little board I've got now. Let's talk about the physical board itself, because I used to have this pedal train style thing that was a bit flat. It wasn't pedal train branded, but it was that kind of thing that was a little bit flat, and I used a small power supply that was on the side of the board, and it was powered by USB, and it meant that I had to have small cables for the power of the unit, and also I had to bring an extension lead and cross my fingers that all would be fine. Due to, I guess, the issues with that, wanting some underside space and wanting a power supply with an IEC port, I wanted to like have something that's a bit more standard, more universal, easy to swap a cable out. The IECs are a bit more of a durable cable, so I wanted that and a larger power supply with underside storage so I could hardwire everything in. And then that's why I recently got this Ricochet board. It's from the company Ricochet. It's about 35 centimeters wide. My original board was 40 centimeters, so I had to swap out a Bellcat tuner for this thinner Donner one. Donner, you can say what you want about it, but like, it really does what I needed it to do. And then on the underside of the board, we've got this pedal power unit. I managed to find one of these on eBay for around about 50 quid, and it just about fits everything that I need to do. Like, unfortunately, because of the thickness of, I guess, the ports, what we had to do was we had to hardwire this into the IEC ports. Additionally, this board initially came with just a DC thing, so we had to cut a little bit more space for the IEC port. But I'm really pleased with what we have, and it works fantastically when you get everything up and running. By having the cabling coming in this way and just the way it powers up, I find it really satisfying. The one niggle I have is that the Octave pedal, it kind of always turns on by default. It's annoying, but I just have to remember to turn it off when I load everything up. Let's firstly talk about the pedals. So we've already spent a little bit of time talking about the Donner DT1 tuner. I know it's Donner, but it's cheap, it's cheerful, it works. I've got this same tuner on a couple of other boards, and it does what I need it to do, and it doesn't add too much noise, or any noise really, into the circuit. So all is great on that front. It's really handy in terms of what I need it to do. And also, more importantly, it's thin, so it just about fits on this board. I initially used a Bellcat tuner, but it was a bit thicker, like the other pedals on the board, and it was a bit slow in its response, so I'm glad that I managed to make the swap over. Having spoken about the amp now, here is a quick sound of just the amp itself. I love that sound, and here is a brief clip just showing the settings that I've got as a general thing. And because the amp lives on top of a cab, I don't really look at the settings that much, so they're usually kind of a set and forget kind of thing. The next pedal here is the Empress Bass Compressor. Since getting this pedal, I can't believe I spent so long playing bass without compression. It is so good to play. Here's pedal off. Pedal on. So this is a really nice specialized bass compressor. It's got a fixed threshold which you then feed into it via the input gain. So more input gain, more compression. We've got ratio either 2:1, 4:1, or 10:1. So I like to go 4:1, but we can have a little listen of the difference. And then 10:1. It's a bit too farty, that one, so I like to keep it about 4:1. As well as the input gain, we've also got the output, which is a makeup gain effectively. And then you can push it a bit more. Or you can reduce it. But obviously we like things ever so slightly louder. In terms of my setting of this, I usually like it to be around about the similar kind of volume as what I'm playing without. So I don't like to add too much volume. I do want to push the compressor a little bit more because I know that I'm on my P bass and I know that this is much higher output than my jazz bass. So I want to try and push it a bit more, around about the 8 dB of gain reduction. The reason being is because I want to hopefully have it where this doesn't sound too much louder than my jazz bass when I do plug that in. We've got attack and release controls. So this is I think a really slow attack. Really fast attack. And that just grabs the note a bit too quickly for my taste, so sticking it a little bit about 10 o'clock. That's a bit too slow. And then we've got the release controls. I usually like this to be a bit of a quick release, because if I go really long, it just grabs onto the note a bit too much for my taste. So I like to keep it a bit quick. If I had it at the extreme, that's nice, but I like to just let it take a bit longer to let go of the note. We've got a mix knob here, which allows you to do some parallel processing. So this is fully compressed, and then if I take this, we've got just the dry. So I prefer maybe just laying the mix back off a little bit from 100%. Just gives me a little bit more of the attack and more of the transient versus just lay it off. There's also a sidechain high pass filter, which I don't really engage. I kind of leave it off for the sake of this because it can get in the way of how I like the compressor to act. Additionally, we've also got this little tone switch. So either we've got the color off, which is what we've been doing now. We can take a little out of the low mid area, which is nice, but it sounds very modern, a bit too modern for my taste. And then also we've got a slight top end boost. And I really like this mode, but I do worry about the compressor coloring my tone instead of just sort of restraining it ever so slightly. So compressor off. On. It kind of has a bit too much of a throaty quality, so I'm going to leave the tone color off. Then I'm going to feed the input gain a little more, take the output down a little bit, because I don't want the compressor to be too much of a make louder pedal. My compressor is basically an always-on pedal. That's how I prefer to operate it, much like this next pedal, which is the MXR 6-band EQ. So what I like and I find interesting about this pedal is the way that it colors the sound, even when all the bands are set to flat. So here is no pedal. Pedal in, but everything's flat. get almost a bit more detail out of it. And I'm not sure if that's just because of the buffer that we've got in this, but hey ho. So in terms of how I like to set this, my moves on EQ aren't too extreme. So 100 I could maybe give a little boost to, but I don't want it to be too muddy. What I like to do is give some love to the low mid, so the 200 area. That's where you get some thump. I really like a little bit of love there because it just gives a bit more weight to the bass. So yes, I'm just going to pull it back a little bit. Let's see what 400 does. I prefer that cut a little bit. Let's see what 800 is. I like the growl that you get when you really push it, but also I don't think it's necessarily suitable. No pedal. Fun, but I'm gonna just lay it back. Maybe a slight boost, maybe not. Take it out. I like what that does. 1.6K, so we're getting into the treble range. You really start to hear that like pick attack when I really push it. Let's leave it flat, see what happens. I'm curious about the 3.2K. Absolutely, I want to boost that because cutting it just feels like I'm putting a blanket over it. Right, so those are roughly how I like to dial that in. Let's give a listen to the pedal in. Pedal out. It just gives so much more definition. I'll probably just take the treble out a little bit, like not push it that far. But this feels so much tamer when it's not in. Compressor and EQ out. Compressor and EQ in. Yeah. Having got them now, I can't believe that I ever went without. They are so good. I love what these two do, and they basically live as an always-on pedal, at least in my playing. Right, next one is the Boss Super Octave. This is an OC3. I got influenced by Scott's bass lessons when I saw a video about super octaves, and I thought, oh, that'd be quite fun doing an octave pedal. So we've got control for the direct level, the octave down, and then a variant thing depending on what you select for this. So the modes are either down 2 octaves, drive, or poly mode, which I don't use the latter. I don't really know what it is or does. The octave 2, I don't like how it is. We can talk about why later on. Let's firstly talk about how I would dial this in. Everything down, and I'm going to get the direct level to where it's unity gain, where it's not louder or quieter. So I made that a bit louder. Louder still. And then I'm going to just start to put the lower octave in a little bit. So I need to push that a bit more because it's still a bit too quiet in terms of compared to when the pedal's not on. Push it more. Let's go a bit higher. And then I like to set mine on a drive knob because currently I'm playing in a rock band, so I'm not going to go too crazy with it. I'm just going to put a little bit in. This is going to just give a bit of dirt to the lower octave. That's so much fun. Last pedal in the chain is the Mooer Bass Ensemble Queen. This is a bass chorus because I guess I googled like essential bass effects and chorus came up, and I got this small one and it's cheap and cheerful, but it does what I need it to do. I like to keep the rate pretty low, about 9 o'clock-ish, because if I go say 12 or higher, I don't like that. Just gives a bit of atmosphere without going too crazy. If I went for the depth, I'd get similar kind of distasteful results. Yeah, I keep the tone quite high because I like it bright. The level is not fully on because that can be ridiculous. Level off, that should be dry, I think. Somewhere in the middle. Normally I would use this just for the melodic parts in Sweet Child of Mine. But besides doing just those melodic parts, I've quite enjoyed recently playing it on the 80s stuff for bass lines. I find it quite satisfying. If I take something like Beat It, then we get some interesting results. I might go a bit subtler in like the context of a band mix. Other songs that I like this on is Ain't Talking About Love by Van Halen. Similar kind of 80s vibe. Just adds a little bit of like extra flavor to it, and I quite enjoyed that about it. So yeah, that's basically it. I've expanded my collection into getting this small, very functional board, thanks to the kind folks at Ricochet for doing me the solid on this board. Thanks to Matt at Snaky Jake's Custom Amplification for being able to hardwire the power supply into this with an IC so that I'm able to basically have a more pro setup with it. In terms of the pedals, we've got the compressor and the EQ, which are just always on pedals. They're basically tone enhancers that make such a difference when they are on versus when they're off. And I just miss not having them, and I can't believe I have been playing this long without a compressor pedal, honestly. The more effecty stuff is the Super Octave, which I just use for some drive and some like fun effects in some songs. I love that. And then just the chorus for a little bit of flavour in some of the 80s numbers. I rotate between either my P bass or my jazz basses, whether they are Fender or Flight Mini, and then I run this rig through my Fender Rumble 200 with the Fender 4x10 extension cab, and I love this rig. It does exactly what I need. Only changes I would consider making in the future is to swap out the board, not swapping the board out, but just getting a case for the board so that my pedal settings don't change in transit. That's the only thing I would really consider doing. That, and I've toyed with the idea of going from a Rumble 200 to like a Rumble 500 or an 800, but honestly, this is a bedroom and this is next to some neighbors on the other side of this, so I don't want to annoy them, and I don't think I play live that much yet to warrant the change. And also, I know that sound engineers are so keen to just DI your bass signal, so they're not going to care about the amp that you use. So honestly, I'm quite content. All I want to do now is just get a case for the board, but I'm so happy with how the board came together in terms of the physical board itself, the power, and also the great pedals that I've got for a really good, nifty little bass rig. Yeah, that's everything. Thank you so much for watching this video. This has been my little rig rundown of my bass rig. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Marc Gallagher. You can follow me on your social media choice at Marc Gallagher Music, Marc with a C, and I will catch you guys down the road. Have a great day.